Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am here today to do the BookTube Oldie tag. So I feel like I've almost unconsciously made a bit of effort for this video, like celebratory wise. Like I've got my red lipstick on. I haven't put red lipstick on in the longest time. I'm not going anywhere after this, but hey ho. Just crack it out for this occasion. And it also feels quite nice to be filming this video right now because a couple of days ago I actually hit 70,000 subscribers, which is like, why? What? Strange, but also I'm very grateful for. And it feels right to kind of be nostalgic right now, and that's exactly what this tag is. It was inspired by the BookTube newbie tag and created by Monica over at She Might Be Monica for people who, you know, weren't newbies when the BookTube newbie tag came out, which includes me. The BookTube newbie tag was a few years after I had already been on BookTube, so I never really got a chance to film it. And this tag is basically an opportunity for us to reflect back on the years that we have been on BookTube, talk about our journey and what we've seen change over the time that we've been here. I mean, I talk about it as if it's like a physical place, and it's not. I think all of what I just said will make more sense when I start answering the questions, but I was tagged by my friend Shar, who has actually been on BookTube for almost exactly the same length of time as me. We both started our channels in 2012, so it was really nice of her to think to tag me, and I really appreciate that. So I was really keen to do the video anyway when I saw Monica create it, because I've also known Monica for many years, and then when Shar tagged me, it just felt like, right, now is the moment. Today is the day. Sit yourself down and get filming. And I've got a bit of a feeling this might end up a long one, because having watched other people film this tag, I have a lot of thoughts of my own, I have a lot of memories of my own that I'm probably going to end up rambling about, so probably get a cup of tea or coffee and settle in. But with that being said, let's get into the questions. So question number one, very aptly, is how long have you been a part of the BookTube community? So I have been a part, officially I would say, of the BookTube community since December 2012. December 2012 is when I started this channel that you're watching me on right now, Bookish Thoughts. I have mentioned before in the past I had another YouTube channel, so I have been making YouTube videos since 2010. I started making YouTube videos at the end of secondary school, the beginning of university, which for me was 2010, 10 years ago now, kind of wild. And I went through a few phases on that channel. It was Jean's Thoughts. It's the reason that like my Instagram and my Twitter are under Jean's Thoughts, and it's also the reason I'm called Bookish Thoughts, because Bookish Thoughts seemed like a nice like companion / parallel to that username, but specifically about books. However, it all escalated far beyond what I ever expected, and this is obviously now my main and sole channel, which I never really saw coming. But I did try like sort of doing some fashion content, some beauty content, some political content over on my first channel when I was getting into the groove of things and just sort of trying to find communities online. But I was so pleased when I discovered the BookTube community. It was very much in its infancy when I first discovered it. Because I had this existing YouTube channel, I started chatting to another YouTuber called Words of a Reader, Leslie, whose channel I'll link down below. And to this day I still I'm so grateful to Leslie for sort of introducing me to this world, because it just came at the perfect time. I started chatting to her, she had a BookTube channel, and I started watching her content, and it very much re-inspired my love of reading. I'd sort of fallen out of the habit of recreational reading at the end of secondary school, the beginning of university, what with like growing up and life and stress and studying, but I'd been a big reader throughout my childhood and like early teen years, so it gave me this opportunity to rediscover literature. And there were not as many channels back then. So the channels I remember following before I started making my own content were Leslie, Sanne over at Books and Quills, Ariel, who I'm pretty sure also had a different channel name back then and sort of like changed to her current channel around like 2012, 2013, and Lena. They're the only ones I really remember subscribing to prior to making my own BookTube content. And then it almost felt like we all started at the same time. There was almost just like this moment, it's this like space of 6 months where so many people started making BookTube content at once, at least people that like I became really friendly with, and that might just be because obviously we started at a similar time, so we made friends at a similar time. But like I remember Shar made a channel around the same time as me, Mercedes made a channel around the same time as me, and then there were channels who I remember being friendly with back then who have since stopped making videos, although some of those people I've remained friends with even though they've stopped making content. And the only reason I say that's when I officially joined BookTube is because on my old channel, the one that I mentioned had like political and fashion content and a real mishmash of things, I did make a few book videos. When I was getting into watching book videos. I made a few book videos on that channel sort of like early 2012. I read and reviewed The Fault in Our Stars and The Handmaid's Tale for the first time, and those really helped me get back into reading. And then I just thought, oh, do you know what? I want a whole channel about this, and obviously it worked out. I'm really glad I did that. But I guess that's kind of how long I've been part of the community in a very long-winded way. Question number 2 is, what was your biggest misconception before starting BookTube? To be honest, I don't know if this is because my memory is lacking and it's just been so many years, but I don't remember having any conceptions really, even misconceptions or conceptions that were proved right, because it did seem like such a small community to me back then. It seemed like this very small niche on YouTube, and YouTube in general was a very different place. I guess personally a misconception I had was that I might make some book videos and it would be my sort of side channel alongside Jean's Thoughts, which obviously now no longer exists. Like, Bookish Thoughts is my channel. So from a personal perspective, that was kind of a misconception I had, and I don't think I ever anticipated it growing as much as it had. I didn't give it much thought particularly, but I never really saw this happening, and I never really saw where it would take me in my life, because really my life is in large parts the way it is because of BookTube. Some of my best friends are people I've met on BookTube, and I could never have foreseen any of that. But I don't think I had any like sort of like perceptions about the people that were already making book content and what it would be like to join them. I just thought, hey, there's some people talking about books. I want to get back into reading. I'm getting back into reading. Maybe I can read with them. And I did, and it was wonderful. I mean, I don't know if that's just sort of like a very like rose-tinted perspective, but I really do think it was like this really positive step for me personally. Question number 3 is, how do you think BookTube has changed since you first started? Well, I think the first and like largest change is literally the size. BookTube is huge now, and that's so wonderful, and I think that's in part because YouTube continues to expand. I think when I was a teenager, the internet was still like, you know, sort of early days. We used like MSN Messenger. We weren't all on YouTube. A lot of my friends I grew up with never spent any time on YouTube when they were teenagers, whereas like I got into it quite early, and now people grow up with YouTube. So I think like our whole relationship with YouTube in general has changed as a new generation has like come to the internet and brought really interesting stuff with them. And because of that, it's just bigger, it's just like more open, it's just wider, it encompasses more. And BookTube is the same, it's just bigger, like it's huge. There is no way I could list to you all the people making BookTube content now, whereas you know what, I maybe could have done that back in 2012, 2013 if I'd sat down and thought about it. I really do. And that's a wonderful thing, because it means more people are like getting into it. It does probably mean that you can't literally make friends with everybody in the BookTube community, because I can't remember that many names, to be perfectly honest. But it means that there's probably like friendship groups and like content for everyone at the same time, because there's so much of it. And I also think there's like more diversity on BookTube. I think people read really diversely. There is like a channel for like every genre. If I want a science fiction book recommendation, I know there'll be a channel that can give me one. If I want a middle grade recommendation, I know there's a channel that can give me one. If I want a fantasy or a literary fiction or non-fiction or poetry recommendation, I know there are channels that I can get those from. Whereas when I started BookTube, there wasn't obviously as many people, so there wasn't as much diversity in reading tastes. And I know people talk a lot about how there are like trends in BookTube now, but I actually think in a way that's less of a thing than it used to be. Like when I first started BookTube, we were all reading like YA dystopians. Like that's what everyone was reading, and then gradually people started to read other things, and that's still true today. Like I said, there's sort of like a booktuber for everyone, and there's like book recommendations for everyone. And equally, I just think there's better representation of lots of different people from lots of walks of life in the books that are getting recommended. So more like BAME characters and authors, more LGBT characters and authors. And that I also don't think is solely down to changes in BookTube, but is also down to changes in the publishing industry and like social awareness outside of YouTube. I think like it's impossible to talk about anything like YouTube or BookTube as if it's some sort of void that doesn't exist within like a wider world, and having sort of paid a lot of attention to publishing over the past 10 years as I've gotten more into the literary world, I see even like publishers making more of an effort, and I like to think it's sort of like a collaborative effort between like the readers and the people online, the consumer and the publishing houses and the authors and the campaigners sort of just like doing their part to diversify publishing and books and reading, and that's fantastic. So I think it's really nice that BookTube can be a part of that and like a positive part of that. I don't know, am I still answering that question? Have I gone off on a tangent? Very possibly, but I guess that's the main thing that I see has changed. It's bigger and more diverse, and content has changed, but content has changed across YouTube. There are trends in video making. People go through phases in what videos they make, and that's true of all walks of YouTube. People's access to different like editing equipment and camera equipment has changed, so people are maybe more experimental with that kind of stuff. In lots of respects, BookTube has become more of a part of the mainstream like publishing literary industry because people have such large audiences and can like talk about and, or as I already said, sort of like change the conversation around publishing. It also means that books and publishers and authors want to get involved because it's a platform where they can reach new readers. So in lots of ways, simply the size expanding changes a lot of things, and those little changes happen because of the size and the like increasing audiences. And I know for some there's a tendency to look back and sort of perceive some sort of golden age with BookTube or with YouTube and feel like they wish they'd made their channel in 2010 or 2012 or 2014. They feel they'd be more popular if they did that, or they would have gotten in with the right crowd or whatever that means. But I just like don't feel like that about much in life, and I definitely don't feel like that about BookTube. I think like people, humans, have a general tendency to look back and create golden ages. It's something that Ovid talks about in his poetry, and I really enjoy Ovid's poetry for the fact that he says, you know, all these other ancient writers talk about the golden age, the time before them, the time that they weren't involved in, but I think the golden age is now. Now, there's lots of problems with now, but there was problems before as well, and there's different pros and cons for different periods, and it is sort of what you make of it. And there's no wrong time to get involved. Like, I see new people creating channels every single day, and it's so wonderful. And I literally have friends that I met in 2012 when I first started, that I met in like 2015 who I've been to their weddings of and absolutely love with all my heart, and friends that I've literally made in sort of like 2019 and 2020, and that is so nice. I just feel like BookTube is like a constant like opportunity for me to meet new people and find new books. So I don't know, maybe like I'm idealizing the now, but I just feel like it's no better or worse than it was. It is just what it is now. Philosophical, I know. Question number 4 is, what is your favourite BookTube memory? I mean, I have so many. It's been 8 years, guys. I remember the first ever BookTube meetup I went to, which was in London. I think it was 2013. I think it was the summer of 2013. I'd been making BookTube videos for less than a year, and I'd already met all these really interesting, wonderful people online, and I was in my 2nd year of university, going into my 3rd year of university, when I think it was Ben organised this meetup in London, and I decided I'm gonna go, you know, I'm like, I'm 20, I'm gonna go down to London, I'm gonna meet these people from the internet. And I told my mum, and she was like, oh, meeting people from the internet, are you sure that's safe? And I was like, yes, mum. I mean, I don't want to undermine the importance of being safe when meeting people from the internet, but like, it was just so funny because it was so much less of a thing back then, and my mum was just a bit confused because I hadn't even really talked to her about the fact that I was making BookTube videos before then. Now my mum's always like, oh, Jean, you've got a new Twitter subscriber. She's very involved. It's very different, but I remember going to that meetup. I remember meeting Ben. I met Sanne for the first time. Like, Sanne is still one of my absolute best friends, and it's just so wild to me that we met for the first time 7 years ago randomly in a park in London. We went round some bookshops and I had so much fun that day. It was just like so exciting, and for me that was also like quite important because it was only the first time I'd ever been to London by myself, and the second time I'd been to London as an adult, and sort of over the years I grew more and more certain that I wanted to move to London. So for me that was quite like pivotal. But then after that, how do I pick my favourite memories? Because a lot of my best friends I made on BookTube, so people I see and talk to on a regular basis I only know because of BookTube, and they are then part of so many of my memories. I mean, I loved having Lena and Jen and Lauren come up and visit me in Edinburgh when we were making vlogs for the Man Booker Prize in 2015. That was such a fun trip. They came to stay in my parents' house and I just like, honestly, such a bonding moment. Had so much fun. I've been to so many meetups and like gatherings for different people in like the bookish community, whether you make videos or not, and I've always had the best time. Although thinking about it, the first time I ever met anybody off of BookTube I think was even before that meetup I just mentioned, because my friend Nicola, who doesn't make videos so often now but was over at Robotnik, lived in Glasgow, and she was the first person I ever spoke to that also lived in Scotland. So she came over in the train from Glasgow when I was in Edinburgh and we went like out together for the day, and that was like my first like in-person internet friend, and that was so lovely. She now lives in America though, which is slightly inconvenient, but I just have like so many moments in my life that were really tied to BookTube. Like I don't know how to discern them from my other life at this point. Like BookTube is a big part of my life. I'm trying to think if there's anything really wild. I mean, if I think about what would childhood me have found really impressive of adult me, then definitely one of those things would be the fact that I interviewed Christopher Paolini. I chaired an event for the release of his most recent fantasy book installment in the Inheritance cycle, because that is something I now do occasionally as a job, is sort of chair events, sort of literature festivals and like independent book launches. And when I was 12, Christopher Paolini was my hero. So I mean, if you told 12-year-old Jean that one day she'd interview Christopher Paolini, I mean, she just would have been gobsmacked, to be honest. And same goes for like the fact that I interviewed Tony Robinson for the Book Break channel, and would I have ever even gotten that job if I hadn't gotten into making book content? Like, it just changed my life because it changed sort of the way I live my life and my creative habits and the people I've met and the skills I've developed. So I don't know like where to start or stop on this topic, and I'm just gonna draw a line there. I'm just gonna cut myself off. I've rambled for long enough. What are some books that you were introduced to because of BookTube? Where do you want me to start? I mean, so I definitely read Shirley Jackson because of BookTube. I definitely read Amanda Palmer because of BookTube. I definitely read Holly Black because of BookTube. So many of the books I read I have in some way found recommended on BookTube. Not all of them, I do still occasionally find a book organically, but let's be honest, most of what's on my wish list is there because I've seen people talk about it on their channels and they've made it sound amazing. But I remember like Shirley Jackson's like an early one that I read because of BookTube. Let me have a look at my Goodreads sort of 2012, 2013 shelves, and then I can tell you some of the first books I read because of BookTube, excluding Shirley Jackson. I'm pretty sure I read Room by Emma Donoghue because of BookTube. I definitely read the Saga comic book series because of BookTube. BookTube really got me into comic books actually. Like I'd read a lot of manga as a teenager but I'd never really gotten into comic books, and BookTube definitely got me into those. I mean, I literally just read Truly Devious and Lumberjanes, two of my favourite books of the year so far, because you guys told me to read those books for a vlog. I mean, that's incredible. Lucky me having your input on what I was reading. I'm so grateful. Question number 6 is, what is something that frustrates you about BookTube? Now, I'm just gonna say this because I feel sometimes as if I might just like live in a sort of cloud, like my head is completely away with the fairies and I have no idea what's going on, because I hear people talk about BookTube drama and I have no idea what it is. I just don't think I am in any way aware of BookTube drama. I think I must be oblivious to about 90% of BookTube drama, genuinely. I hear people talk about like BookTube drama in the abstract and I couldn't tell you any real instances of it, maybe like a couple, but like a couple from 8 years. I clearly, you know, have my head in the sand when it comes to that. It might also just be because I'm not on Twitter as much as I am on like YouTube or Instagram, so I might just like miss a lot of that stuff. And here, I'm the first person to call out JK Rowling when she comes back with some of her nonsense regularly every 6 months. I mean, we can rely on JK Rowling at this point to come out with some nonsense on Twitter every now and then. And we should definitely be critical of the books that we read and the sort of messages that they send. But like, for me, BookTube is, generally speaking, a pretty like safe, happy place. Something I will say though that I find irritating about being a woman and just a human being on the internet in general though is trolls. You get the comments but also like the DMs and sometimes even emails of people like sexualizing you and hitting on you in a really creepy way that obviously makes me uncomfortable. I'm pretty good at just sort of like ignoring it now, but should you have to deal with that? Absolutely not. And while some trolls I just laugh at, like the one that left a comment saying, "I'm sick of this feminism nonsense, get back in the kitchen." Funny, okay? That doesn't upset me. But then you get the person that comes along and leaves really nasty comments about your dad who's recently passed away with like the absolute intention of trying to upset you, and you know that does get to you if you're in the wrong headspace, and has happened. So it's like a mixed bag. There's some funny troll comments and then there's some not so funny troll comments. However, if anything, the trolling just wants me to make content even more because, to be honest, I'm a terrible cook and I should not be in the kitchen. And then to finish things off, question number 7 is a lovely one, and it's, what's your hopes for the future of BookTube? I mean, for everyone, I just hope the BookTube continues to grow. I hope people are able to join this community, to meet people, to make friends, to find a place where they can talk about books and find new recommendations. That's all I could ever want for BookTube. I want those recommendations to continue to be diverse and to diversify even more. I mean, even just in the past couple of years, I have seen so much more discussion, for example, of like LGBTQ plus literature. I remember the first time I made a video about LGBTQ books specifically, I felt really uncomfortable and I got some really negative comments and they hit me a lot harder than they would now, whereas now I know, you know, there are just like homophobes on the internet, but there's so many wonderful people that it outweighs that. Now there's things like queer lit readathons and it feels like a much more safe place to talk about that stuff and get recommendations. So more of that, like more diversity in like ethnicity and sexuality and gender identity of authors and characters. Just keep it up. And that obviously just goes the same for publishing. I hope we all have access to lots of different people's voices through books continuing on into the future, and I hope people feel comfortable enough to come join BookTube even if they don't currently see themselves represented, because I would really hope that we would all be welcoming our many thousands of people I now imagine there are. Gosh, I have no idea how many people are on BookTube, but there's got to be a lot, right? So yeah, that's kind of what I would hope. Just loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of continued book recommendations and awesome people, and for me, just to like it continue. I mean, I like have the best time on BookTube, so I just wanted to like carry on and to keep being able to make content and for you guys to enjoy the content and engage with the content and have this space where I can come and chat to lots of people and have a creative outlet. I mean, that's kind of what I want. Maybe that's a little bit selfish, but BookTube is kind of my safe space, so I really appreciate that, and it's gotten me through some like really hard times in my life, so I just like want it to exist forever and be a part of my life. I can't really imagine my life without BookTube. So that's kind of all my soppiness out. Pretty sure that was just like a complete gush of a video, like a complete soppy gush, and I hope you don't mind that. That's what it turned into. That's kind of just like how I feel. Maybe it's just like at the moment I'm really appreciating BookTube. It's like getting me through not seeing people, and I think we're all appreciating content more. Maybe that's making me just feel even more need to compliment it. But never take that to mean that we should be lazy. Everyone involved in this community who considers themselves involved in this community is responsible for like keeping it up. So, you know, keep up the good work. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, really. I'm tired. I'm tired all the time now, guys. Are you tired all the time? Or is it just me? I don't think it's just me. Anyway, I'm really grateful that Shar tagged me to do this. It's been fun. It's been nostalgic. But I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. Let me know some of your favourite BookTube memories. How long have you been here? When did you start watching? When did you start creating? If you create videos yourself, and what are some of the books you've been recommended because of BookTube? Don't forget to check out both Shar and Monica's channels in the comments down below. They're both absolutely wonderful people who I love with all my heart. And I'm gonna go now because this is just like too much love and gush and happy reading. Bye.